There's my coffee drinkers. Good morning to you. Cheers. There we go. There we go.
Cheers.
Or if you're
All
a
right, I
hot
went to
tea
make-
drinker, that's fine too. Hot tea.
I have the tea. I was about to say I went to make coffee and ran out and didn't have any. So now I'm on. It's called Stress Bomb. So that can't be bad.
Stress bomb.
Stress bomb. Wow, that sounds intense.
Water.
Oh, Sarah's being good. She's drinking her water. I'm very impressed, Sarah. That's what I
Actually,
probably should be drinking more of.
It's very good for you, Sarah. Good
I
job.
found out a month ago that I have heart and liver disease. So
Oh, Sarah.
yeah, so I cannot, I love coffee, but I love it with all of the stuff in it. And I can't have all of the stuff in it. So I just, water.
Sarah,
Gave it up.
look at you. Good for you. Way to go. But man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm 28 years old and I am I'm not like obese or anything, and I have heart and liver disease.
Oh,
Sarah, have you tried oat milk?
Yes, I do like the oat milk. But the problem is I really like the sugar. And that's like I can't have hardly any fat or sugar anymore. So I just drink my water and smile.
That's the best drink for you.
yeah. Way to go.
We should all be so diligent. about
I
that.
know. I'm
I'm
going.
practicing
Well,
really
Well,
diligent.
don't get me wrong. Like I was really bad for a really long time. But when you're faced with, hey, do this or
Right.
have a heart attack, you know.
I love when you say diligent, Janice. It's
I know, I'm
every time
practicing.
is a new chance.
I'm trying to get it so I don't blow it every time. I think I've done it 2 times in a row right, so I probably won't say it that much again, but I just wanted to make sure that it comes out right.
That's funny. Bo, your shirt is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that shirt.
Thank
It
you.
almost undulates a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was the point. I just wanted to test and see how good the camera was on the laptop.
Actually, you and Russell sort of like have a sort of a little theme going there. Black and white theme.
Right, optical illusion patterns for your Zoom meetings.
That's Russell's background for his, he's not on yet, but it does look a lot like your shirt.
I'm with patterns.
Different pattern, same colors.
Hey. I got everything ready. Okay, I lost the chat already.
I had to go shut my door. Okay, what are we thinking? Participant wise, I think we're probably all here pretty close to it. So I think we can probably get started. So good morning. How's everybody? Yay. So the picture that you see right now is some animal crackers, because we're going to do a cracker activity today, only we're using the generic crackers. So we are glad that you guys are here and you came back one more time. This is like Thursday. This is the good day. Tomorrow is our last day together for this until the fall. So hopefully everybody is ready to go. So the goals for today, we actually are going to dig back into the 5E sequence just a little bit and practice doing some sequencing of a 5E lesson. And then we're also this afternoon, in the last part, we're going to actually look at some culturally effective children's literature. So that's the plan for today. The agenda On the agenda, you'll notice that it says resort your snapshot at the top before we start in on our cracker activity. This is because we didn't quite finish that one activity yesterday. So we're going to start with one that we didn't quite finish yesterday. And then, so that's what we're doing today. That's our list. So we're going to move on. If you guys will go to your notebooks. And you're going to have to go back to day 3. And it's the last activity that we didn't get to. It's lesson resort. So you guys went in and sorted a lesson the way you think it should go. So what we're going to ask you to do now is we're going to ask you to go back in there. So then Pat, you'll have to show them, you're going to have to hop back to activity 6, the card sort, to do this. And in there, you should have sorted yours. We didn't sort ours because, you know, we've already done it. So what we want you to do is go back in there and resort that. Just take a few minutes just to resort it. And you don't have to resort it if you don't want to. But the resorting needs to be based on what you now know about the 5E. And in order to do that, we want you to, oh, I forgot to have them get the reading, Pat.
Right here, on page activity 8, there's 5E lesson framework. If you'll click there, that'll give you that PDF. So you can look at that. You can also go down to page 3 of that. Sometimes this really helps, this page. What the teacher does, what the student does might help you resort. So you're going to use that and go back to your card sort. Remember to double click, it's a Google Draw, and then you can resort it. Okay.
And if you don't resort it, that's fine. We just want you to think about it. If you end up liking your first way, that's fine. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to send you to breakout groups, and we're going to have you do your school breakout groups, just kind of like we did yesterday. Tahlequah, you're in 2 pieces today, not just 1. And these are the ones that we've been using all along. So if you don't remember which group you are, this is it up on the screen. And go ahead and go back to the other card real quick, Pat. What your task is you're going to share what you got, or share your resort if you want to, and maybe talk about why you resorted it. And then we want you to decide as a group what order, come to some kind of consensus. What order do you feel as a group is the best, that most fits the engage, explore, explain 5E system. And then you need to go to Dewey. Can you put if you haven't already?
Yep. Shana
Shana did it.
Okay, sorry. There is a actual Google slide, set of Google slides. I'm sorry, I'm like losing my words here for a second. I keep getting distracted. So find your page. We have one for each of your groups, and find your page and do the sort in the way that your group comes to a consensus about. Are there questions about what we're supposed to be doing? Okay, let's break up and get her done.
Alrighty. The rooms are open and you should be able to join.
It's too small for people. You don't need to actually, we won't leave it here for a long time. So the question is, did everybody sort them the same? Can we tell by looking at it, or is this too small?
This one's got students learn the game of telephone. Students learn the game of telephone. Game of telephone. Oh, this one's different. In a class discussion.
That Shawnee one, that's not correct. That's not our correct one.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, we don't know what that is.
Is there another one somewhere?
Oh, we did not go to activity 8.
No,
Ah,
I moved them, but we didn't have time to get them in the correct order. I just moved them so that we could read them. So it's just at random.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
you can actually move them.
Go
right.
in now and just move them
You
around.
can just
okay,
go
here,
in now
I'll
and
do it
move
really
them around.
quick, Diane.
Okay, so while she's doing that,
Let's look at Explore. I mean, it's okay that they're different though. I mean,
don't worry about it. There's no right or wrong answer here.
investigate. Oh, everybody's got the Explore.
So it looks like everybody started with the game of telephone. And then some people did this communication tools, but some people did, oh wait, that's Shawnee, they're moving.
Oh, they're all the same.
Oh no, they're all the same, sorry.
Did you guys cheat and go look at the lesson or something in the
We've never had anybody do it the same.
I'm going,
Well,
They're all the same, aren't they, Pat?
yes.
we did have a
Okay, Shawnee,
discussion.
is that how we had it?
Okay, so that changes the way, go ahead, Pat, just go back to showing not the big, just change the view if you can.
Okay.
We'll just look at the first one since they're all the same. So the discussion becomes slightly different here since you all put the same thing. And I'm going to say this again, most people put these in all different orders because they could be in different orders. They actually could go a different way. So why did we decide to put the game of telephone first? What is there about the 5E that made us want to do that?
It's a hook.
Engaging.
Yeah, it's the funnest thing, right? It's the most engaging, and it also accomplishes the fact of activating their prior knowledge too, but it's the funnest thing. So then in the Explore, we're having them use the string cups and all that kind of stuff. Why is that second?
And Explore on the framework, it talked about having hands-on. So that's why our group chose that.
Yeah, investigate.
Explore is also still kind of tapping into prior knowledge, just applying it. So it's similar to Engage, and they kind of naturally go together.
Yeah, it's maybe kind of a natural flow. I will tell you that a lot of people put this one in the Extend. Does that make sense?
Investigate and explore are synonyms.
Yes, it's a clue. Nice going. A lot of people do put this in the Extend because they have them do the class discussion and do the modeling and role playing in the Explore, which is fine. And then they have them do the communication tools to talk about technology. How does this work with technology? So it's kind of a different topic, you know. We're talking about effective communication, but in technology, sometimes we're talking about effective communication as in, can you hear the signal clearly? What's the best medium for communication? So it looks like, although everybody kind of came up with the same order, and then the Extend for having the role playing of effective topics. That's kind of a way to actually use it in real life. And honestly, this is the way that I would probably have sorted it too, the way that you guys did. But the point that we want to make here is that it's not about the activity, right? The activity is simply part of the lesson. Lessons have a beginning, middle, and end, and there's some kind of activity in each one of those parts of the lesson. And so it's not so much important that you have an activity to do as that you have activities that you sequence in the order that allows students to process information and then come up with their own explanation, which is what happens here. But if you had swapped the explore and extend like you guys have here, it would still be a good lesson and it would make sense. You would just be using those activities for a different purpose and approach them in a different way. So thanks for being so all around good at what you do, and no thanks for not getting some wrong. You guys are all very good. So
there we go. Okay, so this next part, how do we design and sequence 5E lessons? We were just working on that. And using children's literature, instructional strategies, and classroom activities. So this next piece is going to primarily work on that last piece, using classroom activities. Okay. So
this is just the model, so you can just remember this is what we're working with here, kind of get that in your brain. And now,
okay, so now we're going to do an activity. And this first slide just is for you to, as teachers, kind of give you a focus on what we wanted the students to know after the activity. So the student outcome of this activity is to build a conceptual foundation for division, multiplication, and then the relationship between division and multiplication. All third, fourth grade teachers, we know that that's a big piece of those grade levels, is seeing that connection between it. So that's the focus of this activity. What you are going to do in a few minutes is you're going to tackle this problem. There are 36 crackers. How many students can share the crackers? How many crackers will each student get? So you're going to go into your notebook and you're going to go to day 4 and you're going to go to activity 1, cracker activity. Okay, so it has the question written up there again in the notebook. And what we'd like you to do is to answer that. How many students can share the crackers? How many crackers will each student get? So if you go into your Google, this is a Google Draw, so you'll double click and then you can move the crackers around. So if you don't want to do it in the Google Draw and you want to go get some crackers, feel free to do that, because probably in the classroom, I would either use those little tiles or something, or I would actually give them like goldfish crackers and we'd be moving them around. So what I want you to do is to move these around and make a couple strategies of how you would share those crackers.
or how you think your students would do it.
Yeah. And if you notice, it says there are 36 crackers. How many students can share the crackers? And I know the first thing my kids would say, well, how many kids are there? Well, that's not part of the problem yet. We don't know. So find a couple solutions. I'll give you a few minutes to work on that.
It's a lot easier with real crackers.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have a couple solutions?
Yes, 36 kids and each of them gets one.
36 kids?
You're that
I,
student.
I'm getting 36 crackers because I don't have any friends.
All right, so getting them all. All right, anybody else?
I have 18 students can each have 2, 12 students can each have 3, 9 students can each have 4.
Okay, great. So here's a couple examples of what it might look like when your kids did it. So like you said, 36 crackers and 4 kids, each one gets 9 crackers, or 36 crackers and 9 kids, each one gets 4 crackers. Or you've got 36 crackers and 5 kids, each kid gets 7. And then there's one for the dog, because you know your kids are going to do that, you know. So, and that's the beginning part, of course, of the remainders, or the leftovers. Couple other strategies there you've got, and so you're starting to build those arrays. Okay.
Now, a point of interest, it never specified that they'd have to be evenly distributed. So I did one that had 17 different ones, but some of them had 1 cracker, some of them had 5, some of them had 3, depending on how hungry they were or however many crackers they felt like taking.
That's a really good way to do that. And so then you're going to be kind of moving into also addition, you know, with your kids. But that's a great way for them to show their strategy. Now in the regular classroom, I would probably, you know, they would be doing this on their desks, and I would be having them share out, or I'd be having them go under a document camera, showing it under the document camera or up on the board. So your next step would be then, so we've got all these patterns, but it's hard to see like this. So then the next thing I would do with my students is to ask them, so how can we see this data? Because we've just collected data. How could we organize it so that we can really understand it and see it a lot better? And I would give my students some time to actually work in pairs and see what they would come up with. Noah, I like it. It does say equally. We just don't follow the rules in upper elementary. I love that. Oh yeah. So what do you think your kids would come up with if you asked them to show some of their strategies and organize it in a certain way? Think third and fourth.
So my 3rd graders love to share. Like when they come up with their own ideas, they love to share it with everybody else. So I think they'd be excited to share.
They would probably be, yeah. And so you might have to help them if this is the first time they've ever done a table, a growing table, where they can actually see, okay, here's the number of crackers. This could be done full class on a chart, you know, and say, okay, so you had 36 crackers, and I saw that Noah was only going to share them with just him. So he gets 36. And then somebody else had mentioned that there were 18 people in their class, so everybody gets 2. And then we have the leftovers. And of course, over here, we have 4 with 4 left over, or 4.5. Everybody can get 4.5 crackers, you know, so your kids will start to, then they can take a look at the patterns. So what do you notice about the patterns? Here's your number of crackers. Here's your number of students sharing, which increases. What happens to the number of crackers each student will get? And you want your kids to go ahead, oh, divisibles, yeah, so they could see which ones go in evenly, which ones don't, but they also notice that, and I know this seems very simplistic for us as adults, but with kids, they're like, oh yeah, the more kids, then the fewer crackers you get. So, but it is that beginning piece of conceptual understanding of the multiplication and the division. So that is the activity. So we're finished with the activity.
And now we're going to kind of talk about what to do with it. So I just want to say that this is an activity in that it does get out of a certain concept and in a certain way, but it's not about a skill. It's actually about real math, right? We're trying to use manipulatives to get them to understand the concept of division and multiplication, or addition in this case, some too. But what we're really getting to do is look at the mathematics and not the skill of math. So this is a single activity. And when we talk about a lesson, and we're going to be talking with you guys about lessons a lot, we're talking about sequencing activities into an order that makes a lesson where they come up with some type of conceptual understanding. And lots of times lessons are units. You know, we don't always we talk about lessons a lot, but these could be something like a whole unit or something. So what we want to do is we want you to think about this activity that you just went through, this really good activity that you could use in the classroom. But also, where would you fit this into a 5E lesson? We are going to sort of go back over what we learned yesterday using a video. So we're going to see some videos that we made here at the center, and we're going to watch, they're real short, and we're just going to do a little review of the 5E. So Dewey, when you are ready.
Alrighty, is that looking pretty good?
It's looking white.
All right.
Is that good? Yay.
Nope, no sound.
You see?
You can see, but we couldn't hear her.
There we go.
Phase in the 5E model. During Engage, you capture the student's curiosity. We can do this through a variety of ways, including asking a question that requires deeper thinking, posing a problem and having them predict potential solutions, or leading them through an activity that really draws them in and starts generating ideas. Engage is also a time for us to activate prior knowledge, and their responses inform us of what knowledge gaps may still exist before moving on. This is the phase where we get to really draw our students into the lesson and prime their desire to learn more.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss or anything or spend a lot of time, but I want you to take, I'm going to give you like 15 seconds or so of thinking time to think about, do you think you could put the cracker activity in the engage phase? And do you get the next one ready?
Sure.
Could you? Sure. Maybe. Does anybody out there think absolutely not? We cannot use this in the engage? Yeah. It could go here. If you were going to use it in the engage, you would use it for a certain reason, right? Okay, let's try the next video. Explore.
Explore is the second phase in the 5E model. During this phase, students acquire new content and create new context, and they do this through active engagement by interacting with information, by asking questions, and predicting answers. Our role as teachers is to observe and ask questions, encourage student inquiry, and allow for learning discussions. In Explore, it's the students themselves who are constructing the new knowledge and the content.
So while Dewey changes to the next video, think about, could this activity be used in the Explore? Like food always engages kids.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
All right.
Explain is the third phase in the 5E model. During this phase, the students organize the knowledge gained in Explore through attaching formal language and structure. You shed light where needed, support comprehension, and address any misconceptions. In Explain, students interpret what they have learned and are guided towards understanding. It is their time to illustrate, refine, and clarify their new knowledge.
Okay. Could you use this as a part of the Explain activity? Or as the Explain activity? Maybe yes, maybe. Does anybody think no?
I think it's an extension of this activity.
Okay, it could be an extension.
I think as they talk about what they put on that graph or the growing table, that it could definitely be part of the Explain process.
Okay, and that's correct. That when you get to the table, and Noah's saying if we added the vocabulary terms here. Could this actually be broken into two pieces? One part the Explain and one part the Explore?
I think so. There's a strategy that's called find yourself, find a friend, or find a skeptic. And so you could use that after they've broken their groups to find someone that did it exactly like them, and then find someone that did it that has the right answer, but they did it differently, and then someone that they both have something completely opposite.
Yeah.
That would be a really cool way to explain for, especially for our grades.
That's really cool, Shelley. Yeah, and so what you're doing is you're using that talk now. We're starting to about building a lesson with different activities and incorporating them together. So I'm not spending a lot of time talking about these because I have a purpose for it, because we're actually going to do something with it here in a second. So hold that thought. Go ahead, do the next video.
Extend is the fourth phase in the 5E model. This phase is a deeper dive into learning. Now, new content is added to students' learning through the Explore phase. They'll broaden understanding to apply and generalize the knowledge. You may lead the students through reapplying their understanding through new situations, or have them present their knowledge to the class. Here, connections are being formed between past learning and new content. Extend solidifies and enhances new content by layering it with deeper meaning.
Kind of catchy tune, huh? So yeah, could we use it here in the Extend? Both saying it's a demonstration of a concept. So yeah, it's possible. So obviously you're getting the flow of this activity where the answer to all of these questions is yes. But let's go ahead and do the last one.
Evaluate is the fifth phase of the 5E model. Now all the learning is gathered and students are able to consider and define their level of understanding of the concepts. You assess whether students have fully grasped the core concepts and are ready to move on. Doing so might involve a writing assignment asking students to sum up their knowledge. The students decide how the knowledge makes sense to them and how to pull it all together and reflect on what it means to them. Teachers assess learning in a variety of ways, such as a writing assignment, a project, a presentation. Allowing students some freedom and autonomy to creatively demonstrate the knowledge gained over the course of a 5E lesson provides the teacher with a better sense of their students' understanding.
Okay, so same question. Could you use this activity as an evaluate? How would it be different if you used it as an evaluate? An exit activity? Yeah. You could actually have them demonstrate their understanding using this activity. Sure, all the way. So here is our activity where we're going to actually have you, now that you've thought about each one and you've said yes, 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 yes. So if you were making a lesson with this, in which activity do you think that this would fit best? And we're actually going to do a little poll here. Everybody see the poll? Ignore the place where it says untitled question. I couldn't make that go away. So if everybody would vote, if you were doing this lesson, where would you put this, the cracker activity? Are people voting?
Let me. Does everyone see the poll?
Oh wait,
No. I'm gonna hit
hang on.
launch. Is
There.
that-
Now try it. Okay. I forgot to relaunch it. My bad. Okay, I think probably everybody's voted. If you haven't, oh well, I'm ending the poll. These were our results. Looks like a lot of people, the most people would use it in Explore. The next most maybe Engage, and then maybe a few in Explain and Extend. So again, would it be wrong for you to use it in any of the others? No, this is the one that you guys just thought might be the best one. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to have you guys go and start thinking about putting a 5E lesson together using this activity. So go ahead, Pat. The standard for this lesson is represent division facts by using a variety of different approaches. Recognize the relationship between multiplication and division. So that's where you're going with this. We're going to actually give you a start. Since most of you put Explore, we're going to go ahead and go with Explore. So we're going to, let's say that we decided to put this activity in Explore. Yeah, almost everybody says Explore, so we got that. And then we decided amongst ourselves that we would go ahead and maybe even break the activity in two or whatever and just discuss the solutions and have them identify different solutions and pathways as the explain. So what your job is going to be is to actually brainstorm some activities that you could do in the Engage, the Extend, and an Evaluate to make this a full lesson in your groups. So we are going to do your school groups. I'm sorry, I forgot which groups we were going to do. And your results are going to go into a Padlet.
So there is a place in your notebook for you to kind of a working place where you can kind of work on that snapshot And then Janice is, I'll take them to, Janice, I'll take them to the Padlet.
Okay. And also you'll notice in your notebook that, you know, it's blank. If you want to change it to a different thing, that's fine. But go ahead and show them the Padlet. So what we've got here is we've got the explore and the explain described here, just like we showed in our video there. But then we would like for you to add a card under engage, extend, and evaluate for how you think that would work. So we're assuming that all of our explores and our explains are the same, and they don't have to be in the real world, but for this activity, let's just keep it that way. And so have your group put in an engage, extend, and an evaluate that would go with these two activities as the explore and explain. Okay, questions about the activity? So in your notebook, just find the Padlet and work in the Padlet with your group.
Yeah, and Dewey put the Padlet in the chat also.
So I think we're ready to break out, Dewey.
All right.
They're all back?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're just going to talk just briefly about this, and then we're going to send you guys to break because you guys have been working really hard. So first of all, I want to tell you about the discussion that we had in our room while you all were kind of out there doing your thing. We were sitting here looking at the Padlet, and these are amazing ideas. This is really, really good. This is the kind of stuff we want you guys to start doing in your schools with each other, you know? Hey, I have an idea for a 5E lesson. How could I put this together? And we want to get some collaboration going that way. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this grant with a bunch of people in your schools, so that you guys can all kind of form a community around this kind of lesson building. So if you guys will open, if you still have the Padlet open, if you wouldn't mind getting it open again and just taking a look at what other people have written, if you haven't already. Kind of take a quick view of the engage. So I kind of see, do you guys see any sort of like patterns for the engage? Things that seem to be things that are common with them?
The books, introducing reading a book to engage.
Yeah, and that's not to say that all of them are that way, or a video sometimes, because we had the number rock. Lots of times people will use a book especially in elementary, they'll use a book or a video as an engage, just because, you know, getting kids' attention. The mystery bag is fun. The having them make groups of people before they make groups of crackers, that's fun. That's relating it to their own prior knowledge. So when if you guys have any interest in doing this particular lesson or doing it in your own way, we're going to give you access to this Padlet forever, so you guys can go and look at these ideas because they're really great. Bean 13, I'm assuming, is an extra bean that you have to figure out what to do with it, with a book link here. So if you guys are interested in that, somebody's even provided a link for it. Extend. What do you notice is the same or different about all of the extend activities? Oh. Janae is all about incorporating the ELA standards too.
This is good.
I feel like there's a lot more variety here in the extend, and that's actually the and that's the purpose of doing it this way. Russell's asking, does it translate outside the classroom? Deeper thinking. Underlying message of extend is that it can be a lot of different things. That's where you get to that real world part of authenticity. How do you make it translate outside the classroom? How do you make it more real for the students? I guess crackers are kind of real, but whatever. They're, you get crackers at school all the time. So, and also the discussions get deeper. So I love some of these ideas, or all of them actually, but gallery walk, cookies for lunch, other objects besides cookies that you can't split in half. That comes up to a discussion like, what is bean 13? What are you going to do with that last Jolly Rancher or whatever? And then for the evaluate, I got creating your own story problems, another open-ended problem, large-scale projects. Guyman, I love the way you're going to distribute food and apples to your community. That's community connection. Graphic organizer. All of these things are very typical exit tickets, which will have much more meaning now that you've done the rest of this lesson. In the Flipgrid, I don't know how many of y'all are using Flipgrid, but it's pretty cool. Everybody can just record their message and everybody else can listen to it, and it takes away the stage fright just a little bit. So these are all really, really great ideas, and you guys are amazing. I just want to reiterate, just in closing, that you can take an open-ended problem like the cracker lesson for math or for other topic areas too, and you can really turn an open-ended problem into a really big, rich lesson that actually engages students in the way that the brain learns. So you guys have done a really good job, and now it's time for break. Pat, I think it's time for us to come back.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying Karen's view here. Our son is like having a really good time.
I know. So it is. Look at that hair. Okay. All righty, everybody. We are ready to get started. If you will turn your videos back on.
I'm not sure.
And wave, then we'll know you're here. Yay! You guys are so great. Thank you. Okay, good. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Everybody's come back. Good. Okay, we are going to get started with the second half of the morning. And our essential question is, how can we select children's literature for classroom use that is culturally accurate, caring, and respectful? And so that's what we're going to be working on the rest of the morning. So you will need your notebooks. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some quotes in the notebook by these people: Eliza Braden, Rudin Bishop, Ezra Highland, and Natasha Thornton. So if you go to your notebook, you will find on activity 3 quotes. And what I would like you to do is to think about the written material that's in your classroom that you provide for your students, or that is in your library or whatever. And I want you to look at the quotes. Do any of these quotes make you think about what is available to your students? What is available to your students? Choose one of those quotes and we're going to use the chat box. And what I'd like you to do is to put a little note in the chat box. Start with the author's name or the author's last name, and then mention why that quote was important to you or how it stood out to you. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to read those quotes. Good, we're getting some reflections in the chat. Thank you, Amy. Oh my gosh, Sarah.
These are going to make me cry, right?
This is the tattoo I was talking about. It's a girl standing on books.
Oh my gosh. That's beautiful. It really is beautiful.
Thanks. It I had a really tough childhood, so but I could read. And so that quote legit like is everything for people that are kids who maybe don't have the best home life, but they can.
Yeah, or the opportunities to see well what else is out there. They can see it through a book or experience it through a book. Leslie says she loves the window analogy.
So glad to hear that.
Look at Braden's quote again. Yeah, I see some of you commenting about Braden's quote also. Okay, is there anyone that would like to unmute and kind of talk a little bit more about their thoughts about the quotes or a quote? Ooh, Tammy.
I really liked Highland's quote on humanity, and I kind of thought of it as a lot of times we get really data driven. We start, especially around state testing time, we start really work and just remembering that the students in our classrooms are humans and not numbers on a database. And I think that that's something that was really convicting for me.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. Where is, I'm looking at my, Tammy, are you still there? Would you mind talking about your response a little bit?
Are you talking this, Tammy?
Yes.
Okay. I just, it's one of the things, it caught my attention because I feel like this training has really kind of made me more aware of that discrepancy. Like, as educators, we know that every kid comes with a different background. We know that diversity, but when you look at with the materials that we give them, it's almost like a cookie cutter model, which is totally against what we've ever learned in our education courses. And I just thought, wow, has anybody really ever sat down to really think about what we're presenting to, our students? And I think a lot of it has to do with what's easy, what's fastest, what's most convenient for us to get through. We have so much to do and so little time that I think that's kind of where we get hung up. But I think it's made me realize to become more intentional with presenting and offering diverse material.
Thanks, Tammy. Anybody else want to share out? The chat is just rich. It's very rich.
Diana, you don't have to, but if you would like to say something a little bit about yours, I think it's very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it took me a minute to figure out how to unmute myself.
That's okay. I just think it's really, if you don't mind sharing, it's really powerful for everybody.
No, I don't mind. My dad's Iranian and my mom is, white American, and there was never any books about Middle Eastern anything. Even in our history books, there was very little. And so there was no representation. And I remember looking for it when I was a kid. I remember looking for Barbie dolls, baby dolls, books, anything that represented me, and there wasn't. So I try to make a point that every kiddo has representation in my room.
And I don't think it's intentional that happens.
No,
we've talked about that, but it's just now we have an opportunity to really make that different for our kids. And so we don't disenfranchise children anymore, because nobody intends to do that. It's just, oh my gosh, we just didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing. That's really
no problem.
Great. Hi, Janae's little guy. Okay, does anyone else like to?
Rachel, I'm loving. Did you see Rachel about her finding out her heritage? That's really cool.
It was actually my husband's.
Oh, her husband. Sorry.
Yeah, he was adopted in back in the 1960s. They just kept everything so tight secret. And anyway, his search for his birth family ended up finding that he was 1/4 Chickasaw and 1/4 Choctaw, and he found his birth mom. Anyway, coming up from Texas, I was bringing my classroom library with me, and I was looking through it, and my husband's so passionate about finding his heritage, like it just radiates in everything that he does. And so I was looking, I don't really have any literature that, complements my husband's heritage. So I started, adding in different literature, and then I started thinking about the kids in my classroom and just how absent my own personal, classroom library. There's just so many different kids from so many different backgrounds, and I just want to include good literature from all walks of life.
Thank you. That's just wonderful. Plus, I love the thing. I don't love it. It's kind of awful that he was told he was Italian. I mean, that says a lot about a lot of things. So,
yeah, it really does. It was quite tragic.
Yeah. It's actually a storyline on Yellowstone. And so if you have not watched that, you seriously should, because it's like really, it's really cool, because that happened to one of the characters. He was told he was Hispanic his whole life by his adopted parents on intentionally because they said that he would suffer racism as a Hispanic, but nothing like he would if he identified as Native.
Yeah.
And so, which in Oklahoma, it's not like that, but they're in like Montana or somewhere. But when we lived in Quebec, Canada for a while, and their natives are treated how African Black people are treated here. In Canada, they are so the prejudice against natives is so much worse. And I think in other parts of the United States, it's like that. And here it's different just because there's so many natives, which I think is like so interesting because even within this group, you know, I lived in Guyman. I taught in Guyman. We've lived here about 15 years, but just what the makeup of the student body in Guyman is vastly different from the makeup in Shawnee. And then I'm assuming in Tahlequah, it's different too. So it's just so, when you think about even just within the state of Oklahoma, which it's funny because we're really from like we're central, Shawnee is, but Guyman's way in the corner and Tahlequah is too. But when you just think about like as small as the state as we are, that we have such diverse types of communities, but think about that from the United States perspective, you know, and so many of our kids literally never have an experience other than their own, and they don't even know what they don't know.
Right.
Yeah, even sadder than that is there's a lot of kids in Oklahoma who live in a really very richly diverse place who haven't experienced any of that kind of literature too, right in the middle of a place where they should be doing it.
When I was watching that name jar video, it reminded me of my husband, and not so much his name, but his heritage, you know?
Yes.
How back when he was growing up, young child, racism was just really rough for him. And so I just think that now in this day and age, when we have so many books that we can include in our library that celebrate the diversity that America truly is, we ought to be including it every day. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Agreed.
Well, and moving to the next piece, I think you'll really,
That's a good segue.
It is.
Thank you for that.
Perfect, because we're going to be reading an article called The Mirror, the Window, and the Doorway. It's very short, but it's extremely pertinent. And we're going to be using a strategy called sentence, phrase, word to reflect on this article. So if you go to your notebook, and if you go to activity 4, the mirror, the window, and the doorway, you will see, first of all, you'll see a link that goes to the article. And then below here, you'll see a template that is for you to write your, record a sentence that was meaningful to you and helped you gain a deeper understanding of the text while you're reading. Record a phrase that moved or engaged or provoked you. And then record a word that captured your attention or struck you as powerful. Now, if you're using paper pencil, just do it on paper pencil. It's fine. So the thing you're going to do right now is to read this article. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the article. And it is a PDF, so it should pop up for you. And we're going to give you about 5 or 6 minutes to read through that. Okay?
Do your strategy.
And do your strategy.
Hey, Pat. Are you there, Pat?
Yes.
If you would refresh your PowerPoint, I moved the title of the next slide up to the top so there's more room on the slide for people to write.
Okay. Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody's getting close to doing their having it
Yeah, that's okay. I have that too.
doing their sentence phrase.
Their sentence phrase word, yes.
Okay, duh. Okay. I am going to be putting up the whiteboard, and what we would like you to do is to go onto that whiteboard and to put in your word, or if you prefer, your phrase on that whiteboard. So let me go back. Okay, let me share that. Okay.
Remember to go up to view options and annotate to get the tools.
Oh, I like that. Hope-filled schools, possibility, empathy, rigor.
Youth.
Okay, so would anyone like to share out about why their word or phrase was powerful to them or meaningful?
Yeah.
Thanks, Russell.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I chose possibility, and the reason I chose possibility is I've seen too often where people have a very much of a fixed mindset and they can't get past certain points, or they believe they can't get past certain points. And I think the word possibility really breaks that apart. And if children have the desire and the encouragement to dream big dreams, I think that does nothing except enhance their learning experience and of course just increase the possibilities of what they can do. So I really thought that was a good staple word.
Thank you. Okay.
I chose classrooms must provide a doorway of possibility because they're not getting it anywhere else. If you look at the media, everything is biased one way or the other, and they're not getting the understanding of other cultures through that.
Thank you, Earl.
I chose empathy because to me, that's one of the first things you have to have in order to have respect for yourself and for others. And it's kind of one of the keys to, I think, true enlightenment. And it is something that we find far too little of nowadays.
Yes. There, I was trying to find that quote in there about empathy. Maybe somebody can help me with that. Let me see.
I mean, in the reading?
Yeah, there was one I just loved.
It's in the last paragraph, Pat, I think.
Oh, yes, there you are. Take away self-knowledge and empathy for others withers. I just thought, yeah, if you don't know, if they don't know themselves, and for me, this article, I've read it numerous times, and every time I read it, I get something else out of it. And it's short, but to me, it was just a really powerful reading. I hope you all enjoyed it also. Is there anyone else that would like to share out? Okay, let's see, we are going to, if I can find where I'm at here. Uh-oh, wait a minute, go back. Okay, I need to take a screenshot real quick and then I will clear that. And move to the next slide. Let's see. There we go. Oops. Thanks, you guys, for being patient with me as I do all this. Here we go. Thanks, Shana. Okay, so now we're going to actually use some of the information from our discussion and from our readings. And we're going to think about your classroom library and what criteria do you, like if you were going to build a classroom library of books for your children, and you're all at different grade levels, so you want to be thinking about your grade level, and you want to choose books that would be more culturally responsive and respectful. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to make a Jamboard together of criteria, things that you think are important to look at when you are looking and choosing a book for your classroom. So I want you to think about that. And in your notebook, there is a note box that you can kind of take some notes if you want to, but you will also go to the Jamboard. And Dewey's put the Jamboard into the whoops. Okay, I'm having trouble getting to the Jamboard.
There's also a link to the Jamboard in your notebook as well.
Yes, so if you'll go to that Jamboard, I don't think this is linked.
You want me to share mine? I have it open.
You have it open? Okay. Yeah. I think I had actually, well, never mind.
Oh, that's right. I'm sharing it now, so just remember that's mine.
Okay, so Janice has a Jamboard up, and let us know if you can't get to it, but I'd like you to take a sticky note over there, and I gave one example in there about community and that I thought it was important that a community, it shows different kinds of communities in there. And that, so that was like my example. And I'll help you with this giant one in a minute here. We'll get it down.
Thank you. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, it happens, believe me.
I'm trying to figure out. I want to hit say, oh, that didn't help. Here we go. I got an idea. Hang in there, Bo. I think that was Bo.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Well, makes a good background. We have to think positively.
I can't find the place to delete it.
Bo has to delete it.
Oh, that's why. Can you delete? Can you delete it, Bo?
I went ahead and deleted it.
Oh, you're awesome.
I have the text copied. I can make it.
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead and make it. You're faster than I am.
Okay, so
I'm gonna make that one a little bit bigger.
That's too big.
Right.
relevant to students' interests, diversity, make sure different cultures are represented, inclusion and variety.
We have it on there twice now, do we?
I'm sorry. Tammy told me I needed to start again. So.
Oh, that's okay. We're good.
Because you deleted yours.
We're all good.
On family structures, ways of life, languages, relevant to students' interest. Great. Okay, so you've got some great criteria here. I don't, the bad thing about the Jamboard is I can't tell who put what up, but is there anybody, let's just go with volunteers that would like to talk about either theirs or somebody else's criteria? I really like this. There's a little blue one on there. It says, I want to choose books that show diverse leaders in modern, relevant, current situations, if possible, not just historical figures.
Ooh, that's good. That's deep.
That's mine. Sorry. That's something that's like kind of important to me because I was a high school English teacher for many years. And so, we studied a lot about history within English and historical figures, but I've appreciated more and more including relevant and current leaders so that students don't always have to look to the past, especially students who are looking for better, good examples of representation, not just at historical figures, but current people who are out there leading and making changes. And so, I do that in my own reading. I love reading nonfiction. So,
yes, I do too. There is a set of NSTA books, children's books, that are about scientists, and they have women and men scientists of all different races and cultures. And it's really an amazing book. And it's very relevant and it's up to date. And I noticed that a lot of you had mentioned relevant in there, which also we don't want to not teach about cultures in the past, but we definitely want to make them relevant and modern. So you want to look at, but you also have to be very critical of what you're choosing, because what I noticed, and some of you may have noticed this also, in the last 2 years, tons of books were written, like children's books on diversity and different cultures.
And they're not all good.
Yes. Noah, you said it. They are not all good. You really have to read through them carefully in order to decide if that is an appropriate book and if it is accurate. So that is part of what this criteria is going to be used for, because you're going to be able to have access to the Jamboard, so you'll be able to go back and forth between it. So hopefully all of you read the name jar book or watched the video last night, because what I'd like you to do now, if you need access to that, it is in your e-cadence. In your notebook, there is a page, but there's a link in there to the name jar book, but that link doesn't work. I just went in there to check it and it goes to something else. So don't click on that. So I am going to go back and share my screen again.
Okay, I was just about to, but
yeah,
you got it.
Yeah. So in the notebook on activity 6, day 4, the name jar using the criteria. So you're going to be using the criteria that you guys just built in the name jar, or in this next activity about the name jar. So we would like you to find examples in the book, the name jar, that meet one or more of the criteria. And you are going to go back to that same Jamboard, but up here at the top, you're going to go to the second page. And I have put an example of something that I found in the name jar book. And I wrote, the book shows how the community had stores that had both Korean and English written on the signs. Because one of the criteria that I thought was important was that they show different kinds of communities, but that they show communities working together. And so what I would like you to do now is to help us find other examples from the name jar that meet some of the criteria, either the one that you put up or one that somebody else put up out of the name jar, and post your sticky note. Oh, and Shayna, thank you so much. Shayna put the copy of the PDF in the chat. So if you want to look at the book again, because it kind of helps. I actually have the book right with me, but you guys don't. So that PDF copy will help there. Ooh.
When you get finished with your own, be sure to read everybody else's because they're all amazing.
Yes, I want to like do a like a heart or likes on all of them, but it's like
You don't want to show favoritism.
I'm like, oh,
Can I just say something in regard to empathy with this assignment?
Please.
I'm a mom who has kids from another country, and they are one of the few people who look like them in their community. And I suggest that if you have just one kid like that in your class and you're going to read a story about them, you get with them first and make sure they're comfortable with it, because it never fails that someone's going to just immediately start going after them with questions, and they may not want to be the one who has to teach someone about their community that day. You know, when slavery comes up, my kids have come home and said, well, everybody asked me about slavery and I'm from Africa, Mom. And I didn't know what to say, but everybody wanted me to talk, and it makes them really uncomfortable. So I think you should definitely talk to a kid first and prepare them for that and make sure they're okay with it before you just say, hey, guess what? It's your culture day today, because they may not be ready for that day.
That is a really, really good point.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing that, because that really is a good point.
Amy, I've seen that in my class. Last year I had one Hispanic child, and he was very shy. And I always had to make sure, like, I would wait for him to bring it up. Like, whenever we would start talking about something that was related to his culture. And eventually he actually brought me like food one day and everything, but I thought it was very important that I didn't pressure him, and I didn't say, oh, well, so-and-so, yada, 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 you know, if he was interested in, but I don't know, like, I'm the whitest white person ever. But my grandparents are full-blooded German. And I remember being in school reading, I can't even, we were reading about the Holocaust, and, you know, I got ridiculed in junior high over silly things like that. And I'm like, I'm not even, you know, that's not even my thing. Like, yes, my grandparents are full-blooded German, and yes, they can speak German and yada, yada, yada. But so Amy, I totally agree with you. And I think it's important that others do take that into consideration, because that can be very detrimental to a kid's just how they feel, and it embarrasses them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The other kids just don't always understand that sometimes it comes across as really aggressive when everybody starts immediately asking the one person of color or a different culture.
Yes, and that's also well, and that's also like an assumption, you know, just like whenever I was in school and we started talking about that, and I brought up, I am, you know, I'm almost full-blooded German. Well, then I immediately got called a Nazi. Well, actually, Hitler burned down my grandpa's house. So no, I'm not. I'm on the other side of that. We fled Germany, but that's not the point. You know, that's an assumption that somebody else is making based on just one thing, or my skin color, and that's, I can't stand that.
Yep. So true.
And that takes us back to the idea of how the brain works, and the book that you guys are reading about culturally responsive teaching in the brain. That schema of whatever that is part of our prior knowledge, and we have to do everything we can to alter that schema for our children, especially if it's a negative one.
I found when I'm teaching and I'm doing what I do, I teach history. When I'm teaching about the Maya, we have a lot of little kids in my classrooms from Guatemala. They've never heard of them. They have no idea who they are.
Really?
And so to them, this is brand new information, and they suck it up like sponges, and they want to know more. And I have books about it with you know, like National Geographic books about the Maya, and they sit there and they get in groups, and they're all sitting there with the books, and they're looking at it like it's eye candy. They can't, and I'm like, their parents came here from Guatemala, and they're like, they've never heard of it. And to me, that seems weird. I mean, you'd think it'd be part of their culture, part of who they are, because this is their ancestors, but no, not a word. And so a lot of the things that I teach about, even in Mexico, the kids are like, no idea who the Aztecs were. They've not a clue. So they love all this stuff because they're sucking it up, and it's their history. So you can't assume that just because a kid comes from a certain culture that they should identify with their own history, because they don't always do that. So
guys, these are amazing points. I'm really, really grateful to you for bringing all of this up. It's really great.
Well, another, I guess, aspect of this is we read literature and suggestions on how we need to take advantage of the fact that the United States is such a diverse country. It's founded by immigrants, And yet when we try and generate a lot of excitement in our classroom about learning new cultures, it tends to overwhelm the people from the cultures that are different from our own. So we have that sort of unbridled enthusiasm that can, I guess, cause as much harm in a positive way as it does in a negative way too, which is strange.
It's just one of the many things you have to think about. And this is new territory for all of us. I mean, think about it. We all grew up in schools where all of the book characters were white, and you know, everything was geared toward the average, if you will. And so it just
excuse me, can I say something? I definitely didn't just have characters who were white. I'm from England. And
yay!
So I just wanted to say that did not happen where I was from. That was all.
Yay. That's
Samantha, I was going to say the same thing, that being in school in Saudi Arabia, being a minority, I was exposed to so many cultures,
mm-hmm.
so many cultures, and it's just embedded in me. For me, it's common sense, probably a little bit like you, Samantha.
Well, and it's your prior knowledge. It's embedded there, but not everybody has that same prior knowledge as you. So we have to just kind of think about, what do I know? It's like in the book, she says, first you have to find out who you are. What are your hidden biases, all of that. What is your cultural knowledge, your prior cultural knowledge? And remember that when you're filtering that through your own culture, that's great. But you also have to remember that everybody else's is different. So that's one of the actual characteristics, or actually strategies, she has for becoming a culturally relevant teacher. You find out about your own first.
Well, and in doing so, I think one thing that gets lost on just the diversity or thinking about different cultures is the scale of the United States is enormous compared to a lot of other countries. And so while in Europe, it's more of a commonplace to be right next to somebody that speaks a different language and has a different culture, the United States is kind of homogenous, but like each state kind of has its own identity. So that in itself is a different like cultural dynamic that doesn't necessarily translate evenly when you're looking at other countries and the relationships that they share with other countries that are near them. Near is a very relative term when you talk about the United States. Like, why do we drive everywhere in Texas? Well, the state's huge and it's so spread out. You can't just walk to the next town because it's 50 miles away. Well, it's 30 miles away by train because of the railway and the water. Anyway, I digress, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, we are going to, I hate to disrupt the conversation because it's really rich, but we're going to move on to one more activity before we close up for the day. And so this activity, I'd like you to kind of contemplate what this teacher's thinking. So suppose she were thinking, I know my students would love this book, talking about the name jar book, and gain so much from reading it. Could it go in a lesson? Should I use it in a social studies lessons? Maybe science, math, or should it stick to language arts? How will I use it? Which E does it fit in best? Because of course she writes her lessons in the 5E using the 5E model. What is the purpose for putting it in that particular E? It's just so much to think about. So based on that, what you are going to be doing next is you're going to be working in groups and you're going to be brainstorming with your colleagues some ideas about how you might use this particular book, the name jar book, in a 5E lesson or a part of it. You might not want to use the whole book. Maybe you want to use part of it. You want to think about the purpose of the activity for which you would use the book. What's the purpose of it? what E would you place it in, and make sure you go back to that 5E framework page where it explains what's in the E's if you need to. And why does it fit in this E? Now, when you go, you're going to be doing this in that same Jamboard. And I want to go back to that Jamboard for just a minute and explain something. So up here at the very top, can you see my cursor moving around? There are these little arrows, and these are the pages. So if you go back a page, this is the criteria that you created to start with. These were your examples that we just finished. On the next one are the E's. And so we'd like you to place your sticky note. Like if you decide, your group decides you're going to use the book in the engage, put your sticky note under the engage column. Or if you think you're going to use it as the extend, place yours over here. You might choose, why we have two ideas, and you might want to put it in two different places. So that's how you're going to use that Jamboard. In your notebook, it's activity 7. Gives you the 5E again, and it gives you a place to keep your notes. It also has the link for the Jamboard again. And it should take you to page 3, but it might not. But anyways, use those little arrows at the top. Are there any questions before we have Dewey send you to your breakout rooms?
I'm going to point out one other thing too. We actually purposely set up the links for this Jamboard so it goes to the actual page that you'll be working on. So that might be what confused some people, thinking they were in a different Jamboard. So when you click this link, it's going to actually take you to the page you're supposed to be working in, but you can always move back and forth.
Back and forth between them and stuff.
I have a question. And I apologize, you may have already said this. What is the content of the 5E lesson that the name book would be going into? Is it like over culture, or?
That's up to your group. So your group, when you kind of discuss it, you're going to discuss, well, I think I would use this book in for a science lesson. And so where would it go in a science lesson? Or maybe you're going to use it in a social studies lesson.
This is one of those open-ended assignments.
Real open-ended.
That was a good question.
Yes. Okay. I think we're ready to go into breakout groups.
All right, the rooms are open. You should be able to join.
Okay, I think we have everybody back now. So thank you all for doing that work. Where if Pat's displaying the board that you guys just worked on, and if you can't see it very well, you can, pull it up for yourself so you can see it a little easier on your screen if that's better for you. So, the big thing that stands out, I won't make you put this in the chat, is that nobody used it for explain or evaluate. That's the first takeaway. And that seems logical to me. I mean, you could actually make and evaluate with the book using questions from the book. I don't see that as a good option. The explain is harder to think about. I think it's possible to use it in the explain. Maybe you've done a lesson of some sort on different cultures, and maybe in the explain, you would want to use that prior to an explanation that you did with them, but it probably would never be the focus of an explain. So we have mostly engages and extends. And I can't remember who asked earlier, but about what's the topic of the lesson. You can see that if you compare the engage side with the extend side, it looks like the engage is kind of like sort of like a lesson that we sort of did with you all, something about names or something about people's culture and their names. Whereas some of these have on the extend have another social studies lesson, a different emotional lesson, history, art. So the extend tends to be a little bit broader. So if you had another lesson that you could connect this book with, I think it's an appropriate place to use it in the extend, but generally it looks like most people would use it in the engage, which kind of just brings us to the point. I mean, if y'all want to share some of this stuff, we'll have it, but these are really great ideas for using it. But what I want to go back and talk about just briefly before we break up for the day is just in general, the 5E. Pat, if you would put up the PowerPoint slide, just that's got the 5E on it so I can.
Whoops, just a second.
So what we want to think about it is that in the 5E, it is not about a formula that you plug it in and you don't go and ask somebody, is this right? What's going to happen is you're going to get different things in different E's depending on the purpose that you want to use them for. So when you're thinking about making a 5E lesson, don't think about, oh, this would be fun to use in the engage. Think about, oh, this would be good in the engage because it activates prior knowledge and because it engages students, because that's the word. But so the 5E is just like all the stuff that we're showing you guys this week. It is not something you memorize. You don't memorize the 5Es. You use them as a framework. That's why we give you tools that say what each section is for. That's why in authenticity, we tell you we're looking for construction of knowledge. We're looking for disciplined inquiry. You don't ever build a lesson around any of that. What you do is you use it to think about how you build a lesson. The other thing that we touched on this in one of the groups I was talking to. It's not always just engage, explore, explain, extend, evaluate. Sometimes it's a little bit iterative. Sometimes you can go back and forth in the 5E. So you might go engage, explore, explain, and then you might do another explore and another explain, and then you might do an extend. And sometimes you might do a engage, explore, explain, engage, explore, explain, engage, explore, explain. So the idea here is not that slavishly you have to make all your lessons 5E, 5 pieces. There's a lot of sort of hidden inside each thing. So lots of times, especially your extend, will be another explore, explain, or another engage, explore, explain, because you're doing the same thing over again. It's just in the extend, you're going, okay, well, before we start this extend, let's engage them a little bit first. So it's more of a way of thinking about the order. You want to explore first and explain afterwards. You want to give them something to work on and then explain and attach the vocabulary. So the big takeaway is that the 5E is a way that you can get kids building some kind of a structure, some kind of a schema, and then in the explain, you can attach vocabulary to it. And there have been studies done, and we know that this works in the classroom. If you do it this way, rather than introducing the concepts or the vocabulary up front, the kids learn it better because of the rules of the brain. And this is true for all students. It's not just true for gifted students. It's not just true for special ed students. It's true for all students. And so this is a way of thinking about doing lessons. It's not something that you're going to have to memorize. Just you have tools for that. So I think I want to leave you with that thought. Do you guys have any questions about the 5Es? Because it's kind of our finishing activity for the 5Es. Anybody have questions? Comments? Y'all are like, let's go. Okay, Pat, you want to do the independent work?
Yeah, because it's going to look a little different today. So one of the things in your notebook under independent work for day 4, The first thing we would like you to do is there's another short article about a list of 10 telltale signs of an outstanding multicultural book. We'd like you to read that. And then we're going to actually have you go into it's a Padlet this time, and it is linked in your notebook. It's called Analyzing Multicultural Books. And when you go into that Padlet, let me show it to you because it's going to look a little different. Okay. These are all in the Padlet. These are all YouTube links to this book, to different books that so there's stories. I didn't think you would probably have all these books, so that's why we put the YouTube links in there. And what we would like you to do is, using the criteria that you created earlier on the Jamboard and what you will have just read in the 10 telltale signs of a multicultural book, we would like you to go in and analyze one of these books. So this card has the YouTube link in it, and when you go to the analysis of it, you're going to click on that plus sign, and then you're going to write your thoughts about that book. And don't be afraid to say, I don't think this book is appropriate because of blah, 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 or I really like this book because it shows community, it shows it's accurate, or whatever, however you feel about this book, especially related to the students that you teach. So feel free to, and these are also fun if you've got children at your house, your own children, to share with your own kids, so you can do it kind of as a family project. But you'll want to also go all the way, there's a lot of them. So there's Blackout, there's one called Beautiful, Brave, The Matchbox Diary, My Name is Sanguel, and then there's more. So make sure that you use the scroll bar down to the bottom, and so you can see them all. There is a category if you know of other books that you might want to suggest, please take a post there. And then the last column is, which book would you like to own for your classroom? After people have done the analysis, we'll give you some time tomorrow morning to kind of cruise through those and to actually add that into that last column there. So that's part of your homework.
Okay, before you move on with that.
Yes.
There is an error in your notebook.
Uh-oh.
The list of 10 telltale signs of an outstanding multicultural book takes you to someplace else. And Shayna and I are trying to actually find that article.
I'm on the cusp of finding it.
You what?
Put it in participant
You
folder.
did find it?
I'm almost there. I'm very close.
Okay, so we're going to put that link in for you here in a second. Go ahead.
So we could have probably also put it in the e-cadence, add it to that day 4, that link like we did.
The resources list already.
Is it?
There.
Sorry about that, you guys. And so let's see. Okay, so then the next thing will be to do your scavenger hunt. And so hopefully you are keeping up with the scavenger hunt, because tomorrow we're going to be doing the Kahoot. Now, some people also like to do the Kahoot on their phone, and some like to use the computer. If you want to do a Kahoot on your phone, you'll want to download the Kahoot app. It's Kahoot. And so the strategy, and then the strategy note catcher. Now, in your notebook, these last websites, those are just optional, but there's some additional ones. I tried to find some websites that would help you pick multicultural books, like for certain demographics, like there's the one on American Indians in children's literature. It's really good because it pointed out some things that some chapter books that I had used 10 years ago or so and thought were really good literature. It really pointed out some things that I had not really picked up on. So it's really good. So some of those other ones might be things that you would like. And that's it. Let me go back to this to make sure. Finish the scavenger hunt. Finish your reflections on the note catcher, the Padlet, and the 10 tell signs of outstanding multicultural books.
And on the Padlet, we are going to use it as the first activity. So tomorrow, so be sure and do that.
And Shayna just put the link in for this article, list of 10 tell. Oh, you know what I mean.
10 telltale signs.
So it is in the chat. So you might want to copy or click on that and then save that link.
Also, it's in eCadence. When you go into eCadence, you can actually find it there in the, trying to look at which one it is.
Oh, and don't forget, you have an exit ticket to do in eCadence and a trek thing.
It's on the day 4 independent work page of module.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as Pat said, actually, Pat, I'm just going to share my screen real quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all. Let me unshare.
You don't even have to. I just went over you. So in eCadence, when you go in, there's module for the 5-day workshop. There's module 4, the usual meeting information. And then the next page is the objectives, and then is the independent work. This link works in here. So if you lose the one that Shayna just put in, that's the other place you can find it. And then also be sure to do your exit ticket. And also be sure to do the Trek evaluation, the rapid one and they all look alike every day. So just remember that it's just about today and not the whole workshop. Any questions before we hit the road? Y'all are completely awesome.
Okay, guys, well, we'll hang around for a little while in case you do have some questions. But other than that, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Always good to see you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
To everyone.
Bye.
We're going to miss your shirt, Bo.
Try and wear something festive tomorrow.
All right. Is tomorrow the same time, 9 to noon?
Yes.
I've written down somewhere 1 to 3. I don't know where I got that, but
so that last year we did a morning and an afternoon one, but we changed it, and maybe it's an artifact from someplace. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but no, we're just 9 to noon tomorrow and done.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. All right.
No,
Thank
you are
you.
correct. Okay. Bye-bye. Anybody?
A little
have
curious
questions?
about the book, the name jar, and I don't think that that's a really great book to put in front of a class, because it has this little girl who's different, not liking her differences throughout the whole book, and at the end she has to find acceptance, within these group of people who are not like her. It seems
I've
like a bad
I've
choice.
actually heard somebody else say that before too.
I really don't like this book. It would be like reading I Like My Hair aloud with one black kid in the class. And then at the end, okay, yes, they finally like their hair, but it makes the whole book, everybody's like, oh, they don't like their hair, or, oh, they don't like their name. Oh, their name is different. Maybe that's why they don't like their name. It seems like it's just making the person who is different kind of pinpointed and pinpointing their differences. And it doesn't teach much about their culture. It's just saying, I don't feel comfortable with who I am in my culture.
But
and
so
I don't understand.
In the book, though, the mother do emphasize
water bottle.
Whoops.
That to celebrate that difference. So it kind of depends on how the teacher, I really understand where you're coming from, Amy, though, because it would depend on how the teacher used the book and how they read the book with their students.
Right.
Yeah,
I just
you
know that our classrooms aren't that diverse here in Oklahoma a lot, you know, so when you have just one kid who's different and then the whole book is about them not liking their differences until the very end, it just seems like it's calling that out.
Right. And that's a really good point, because see, my classrooms were always 60% multicultural. I mean, they were quite diverse. I mean, in a lot of different children from a lot of different cultures.
So I feel like if you'll hold that thought,
Yeah, good thought.
that we can, bring that up as a quick discussion tomorrow, because I think it's important, because I think what you're doing is you're modeling for us. Okay, well, we thought this was a really good book, but wait a minute, there's always something wrong with every book, and this, if this is one you wouldn't particularly use with your students, that's fair.
I agree with
I also wanted to ask a question about when you're developing your class library and thinking about parents, and there's so many biases these days and so many opinions, and you have to be kind of careful. And I know gender is a big deal right now, and it's a little tricky to be putting books like that in your classroom. And what are you guys' opinions on how to go about doing that? Because it's a little bit scary in Oklahoma to try to put anything.
There's a lot of things,
there, right now.
Ashley, do you have anything you want to put in before we do our 2 cents, or?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give you the safe answer first, which is it kind of depends on your district and their stance on some of that. So I'm going to defer you first and foremost to your administrators and instructional team there first on that. So that would be the first thing. Secondly, so it's going to depend a lot on the stance your district is taking, what your teams have adopted or into their curriculum before you just, I don't want to say go rogue, but just start bringing in a bunch of things. And so that's where I would first begin.
Okay.
I think it's, as an English teacher, like I was all ready to buy the books and to bring them in. I did a lot more of just allowing students to choose books, and if they were fine with it. I know it's different when you're teaching elementary, right?
Yeah. You don't want to teach something that you didn't intend to teach, and you have to be careful now because there's so many books where you don't even know what happens until page 13, and you're like, oh snap, there's 2 dads. And then you didn't intend to teach that topic that day, but it's scary to be a teacher in these times and to feel like it's your job to explain diversity and have it there, but then you're responsible for having it there as well.
And we're all new at this. I mean, this is not something that's been, there are a lot of people who have been very culturally responsive teachers all along, but most of us have just not really thought about it as much as we should have. And we're just learning the ropes now. So you have to give yourself a little bit of permission to, say, gee, I like I just did with you. I just never thought about that. Let's talk about that,
And I hope you don't feel like I'm coming across from a judgy place. I'm not. I'm just trying to make big and new connections and understand.
Absolutely not. You are
good point. We appreciated your comment a lot.
Yeah.
And you have to have a safe place to have those conversations with people as colleagues, I think. And I would say, again, like your questions on reading books in regard to like gender identity or those kinds of things are questions I have in my mind. Like, what is this going? So I think it's a conversation at your school site to have either with your team or with instructional coaches at your team and say, what can I do? Where do you see that I have some, freedom or some leniency? And really, even I've seen with my own children in their district, occasionally we'll get like a note home, like, hey, we're getting ready to read a book about. And so with some opt-out options, I think there are at least right now some options. Not that they're all great, not there. And I'm always like, yeah, let my kids read the books. Like I'm fine with that, but just trying to be aware of. But I know that sometimes that also creates other other issues in districts. So
what's coming up with kids, though, it's getting interesting as they're bringing it up younger and younger and younger as they're being exposed to it. And it's hard to know the response. Like on my board, whenever kids needed to go to the restroom, I'd always have a B and a G, and you just wrote your name under the B or the G. And one of my kids went up there and wrote a T in 3rd grade this year. And I was like,
Was
you know
he doing
what?
it for,
I'd
for a
trust these
statement
kids.
or is he actually T?
Yeah, and you don't know, and you don't want to go say, well, I'm erasing your T, but now I just put a bathroom. So those conversations are gonna have to be had soon with this topic.
Probably-
It's just tricky.
Yeah.
They know
'cause
so
we're
much,
hearing
but
it
they are
at
so
home.
innocent at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it comes up no matter what, because I mean, the kids will draw pictures of their families, and one other kid will go, how come we got 2 moms there? And I mean, that's come up, and
It's just kind of all part of the changing landscape, and it's such a wonderful time to be a teacher. Not maybe about some of those things, because we're in the mixing part of the change where it's a little bit chaotic.
I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Oh, please.
Just